Okay, it looks like we're live now. How's everybody doing today? I'm National Master Bobby Steen, and I'm going to be talking to you guys about endgames today. And in particular, I'm going to be talking about the king in an endgame. So, when you first start a chess game, typically people will tell you you want to hide your king away by castling, right? Seems true enough. You don't want your king in the center. That's where most people focus all of their attention. And if you have pieces flying in the center, you don't want your king in harm's way. So you quickly shuffle him to the side and get him out of there. And that's good advice. That is great advice for the opening and the middle game. But in the end game, the role of the king takes an entirely different form. And in fact, it's the exact opposite of what you'll hear people telling you to do in the opening and the middle game. In the end game, you actually want to move your king towards the center. You want to rush your king towards the center. And when you think about this, it really makes sense, because when you go to an end game, you start to get fewer and fewer pieces. So therefore, each piece then becomes much stronger, right? If you only have 3 pieces, you want to make use of all 3 of those pieces. You want to use those 3 pieces to the max. So that's why the king takes on such an important role in the endgame. And I will pull up the chess screen here and show you a couple of examples of that. Hopefully, you guys can see the chessboard here. Okay. Alright. We're going to clear the board. And I have this basic position that I'm going to set up here. And that's this position here. And this is such a common position. It happens all the time in amateur games and even in, professional level games. So this is one of the most common positions you'll find. And let me just show you what happens typically, and then later I'll explain to you exactly what's happening. But first, let me just run through some of these moves. King d6, okay. King e4. King d6, d5 check, King d6, King d4, King d7, King d5, 7, d6 check, King d7, King d5, and then King e8. Actually, King d8 here, King c6, King c8, d7 check, King d8, King d6, and we have a stalemate, and the game is drawn. So, why did that occur is probably what a lot of people would like to know. And in order to explain that to you, we'll have to start from a very basic position here. And there's only 2 kings here, right? So, the topic I'm going to cover right now is called the opposition. Okay? And in this position here, we have 2 kings that are facing each other. Both kings want to advance. The most important are these 3 squares here that I'm going to highlight. Because, as you can see, those 3 squares are what separates the 2 kings from each other. And if one of the kings can step onto those squares, that means he'll have advanced. And the opposition is not an end to itself, right? The point of the opposition is to be able to advance. So, in this position here, whoever has to move right now will give his opponent the opposition. So let's say that it's Black's move, and he will move over 1. And now, we already highlighted these 3 squares. Now that he moved over 1, we see one of these squares is available. So it allows us to advance up the board. King c5. Now, why is that important? Well, here with 2 kings, it doesn't make sense, right? What does that matter? It's a draw. There's 2 kings. But in a king and pawn endgame, this is very critical. And it goes back to the position that we just had before. So I'll show you one more time, the position that we started with the pawn. Now, keep in mind the opposition. When the king is one square apart, like this, okay, whoever is to move loses the opposition and allows the opponent to advance. So with the pawn here, it's a bit different though, because we said the squares in front are important, right? But he steps back, okay, staying on this line here. Now we move up, and now black takes advantage of the opposition and grabs it, king over. You want to maintain that opposition. You don't want to allow the white king to get in front of his own pawn, because if his king gets in front of his pawn, then he can win there. So we stop him, king e6. And then again, we see that he plays check, e5. And then again, we step right in front of the pawn and don't allow the king to come up, king d6. And then king d4. And now we employ the same idea. We just keep moving backwards one square, king d7. And then if he moves up like he should, king e5, we again take the opposition, king e7, stop him from advancing. Here, check again, block in front of the pawn again, king d5. Then we go back again, king d8. We want to stay in line with the king. And the reason for that is, if you don't stay in line with the king, and you play here, now here's the key difference. White goes here, and now white has the opposition. And now, if you move over, then he has this move. And he's going to queen, because we have to move here. And then he's going to move here. And that's going to be game over. But as you can see, when you go straight back, and he comes up, then when you move over, you have the opposition, right? So now when you check, you move over, he doesn't have that possibility, because now in this position, instead of it being black's move, it's white's move. And that is the critical factor right here. Now that it's white's move, he has to figure out what to do, and there's nothing for him to do. If he defends his pawn, it's a stalemate. If he moves away, we take the pawn. It's a draw. So king d6, stalemate. So that's the lesson for today. It's about the king in the endgame and opposition. And just keep in mind what we've learned today is that you want to rush your king to the center in an endgame. Especially a king and pawn endgame. It's very crucial because that's all you have are your pawns and your king. So your king becomes very important. So you want to get your king to the center as soon as possible. And the opposition is very important because the opposition allows us to advance in a king and pawn endgame. If you have the opposition, that's a good thing. And you always want to try to gain the opposition. So that's our quick video for today, guys, about the king and opposition. Let me know what you think about the video. You can offer some suggestions to some videos that you would like to see or any topics you would like to hear about. And that's it, guys. Have a good day.